Hello, and welcome everyone to the Emotional Entrepreneur Show. Welcome. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Hello. Well, welcome everybody to the Emotional Entrepreneur Show. We're so excited to be here with you today. It is Tuesday, and this is When We Land, is Tuesday of every week with a new subject. And today it is fostering understanding and success across generations. Let's get right into this. There's so much to say about this because this is something that we talk
Talk about it.
We talk about it.
That SNL skit with my coffee. Oh, no, that's not the church ladies, is it? Is it the church ladies?
Which one?
The church ladies? Is
The
it
church lady. I think it's the coffee talk lady.
Yeah, that's
right?
good. That's that one. That one. Oh my gosh, was that 30 years ago?
Oh my gosh, we used to, yeah, exactly, right?
It was 30 years ago.
Tapping way back into the brain. But what's funny is I think they just had like their 50-year anniversary show this last Saturday. And so
50?
my mom was, yeah, SNL. And so my mom and I were talking about it, and she was like, well, it's kind of funny because they didn't have like Rosanna, Dana, the Coneheads. I'm like, Mom, you're dating it so far back that people probably don't remember those people except for your generation.
Yeah,
right?
are they still around?
Oh, you know what? Dan Aykroyd's still around. Unfortunately, a few of those characters are long gone, but that was a time on SNL that was superb. Not that it hasn't been good, since then, because there's all kinds of characters that have come out of there that have been awesome. But that's just going way back.
Favorite one, and I've had a couple of people send this to me when I would be overthinking things. The psychologist, when he goes, "Stop it! Stop it!" Oh God, that's still applicable to today. Like, yeah, that's like
exactly. That is hilarious. Now, who was that? Was that Crystal, or was that somebody else?
No, it was a guy. Gosh,
it wasn't Billy Crystal.
No, it wasn't Billy Crystal. I can't remember the guy's name, and it was such a famous skit. It was so funny because it was like the girl. The lady came in for a session, and then he was just like, that was his only line. That was hell. But
forget about it. I liked like Edward Smalley, and it was like, okay, it was like Meditations of Edward Smalley or something, or Mindset. Wow. And he would talk really calming. Or Billy Crystal's character, where he would do the game show. Oh my God. It was just, there were so many characters on there. Anyway, I don't know how we got off so far off topic.
Oh yeah,
that's right. Well, coffee talk.
We had to talk about fostering and understanding.
Sometimes I wear these big,
like that.
Sometimes I wear these big glasses. They're like pseudo 1970, like my grandmother used to wear. And my husband's like, oh my God, you need to get into the it's coffee talk time, everybody. Right. And so
like that.
Oh, I'm serious. So when we were going cross country, my friend and I, when we would get on each other's nerves because we were driving cross country, we would break into that. Like, okay, everybody double, it's like, we're going to just talk about this right now. And, and we'd wear that. Yeah. It was hilarious because we just had so much fun with it. Right. So, but it got us laughing again. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Not just laughing, but fostering understanding and success across generations. And this is so important because with 5, almost 6 generations in the workforce, we have Gen Alpha now, and they're fairly young still. They're 2012 or 20,000, yeah, 2012 up to current, right? So they're a little early to be in the workforce. However, it doesn't mean that they're not out there doing some stuff, especially on social media, right?
Right.
So right now, we technically have 5 generations in the workforce, primary generations. And so when we look at that, there's a lot to be said about what's happening, what's influencing, communication, what is influencing, success in a company because of maybe misunderstandings, lack of like understanding each other's value sets. So there's so much that is here that can run really deep, that can hinder maybe the ability of a workforce to be as successful as they want to be together because of those bridges that have yet to be, that yet to come together, right? So it's like, we're talking about communication. We're talking about strength of every generation. But how do we harness that strength? How do we look at that and say, how do we work together better? How do we understand each other better? How do we recognize even strengths of one another? And that is really important because I think sometimes we get lost in the stereotypes and we don't ask our coworkers about themselves. We don't show empathy. We just make assumptions. And so, yes, so I think that not just communication, not just the strengths, but there's culture, mutual learning, there's co-creating together, there's innovating together. But if you're not open to it at any level, meaning you're a young professional, a young leader to an older leader, and if you're blocking, the ability to actually get along and talk and communicate and accept some of the things, or understand rather some of the things that could help the company innovate, because you think, oh gosh, I already know it all.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're not helping that company, and you are not sharing a mission together where you're personally being successful together, working with each other, or, collectively working together as a workforce for a company. Jen?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Like what you said about the assumptions, that's, I don't know if that's just the natural thing that we do, but we do make assumptions, and that's where it could get dangerous because there's judgment, there's the assumptions, there's stereotypes, there's all these different things. And so we need to be careful with that, because once we enter into that world, it creates this lens. And then once we have this lens of how we're looking at other people, you're not even giving you're not even giving it a fair shot. You're not giving other people the opportunity to show who they really are. And then you're already coming into the whole situation apprehensively. So we got to be very careful that we don't create this false lens. Now, give it opportunity, get to know the person, ask some questions. And I think that's important to figure out, what are some questions that I can ask? And especially if you don't know somebody, of course, you're not going to, you got to ease into it. It's just not like, so what kind of major health crisis are you going through? I mean, you want to ease into, ease into
Yeah.
things, but get to know people. And I think, again, it's one of those things where people don't know how to start conversations sometimes. It's almost like networking. I mean, I took this course years ago, like it was to be like an official networker. And it's interesting. There was this whole process of like, these are the things you do when you go to an event, and these are the questions you can ask, and this is how you follow up, and this is what you don't do. But if there's a class like that, imagine we don't even have anything training us. We just get the job, we show up, and then we get to our new desk, and then we're like, now what? And, there's different environments where there are some places where there is, maybe, I don't want to say a welcoming committee, but there's like, there's a person who's, designated to like, okay, make this person feel welcome, show them around, blah, blah, blah. It might be, maybe somebody is in charge of that, or it might be somebody, a manager. And then there's places where nothing's in place. It's like, just go figure it out. All right, here's your assignment. And then you're just like, okay, what next? I don't even know who I'm going to. It's almost like high school, or even like school. Like, okay, who am I going to eat lunch with? Do people
Yeah.
go eat out, or where do people eat around here? Or am I going to sit by myself in the cafeteria or wherever, the lunchroom? And it kind of, now I say that, it kind of takes you back to those awkward moments when you're growing up, where you're trying to
Yeah.
find yourself, you're trying to find your identity, you're trying to find, what group do I belong to or belong in? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to feel acknowledged. We want to feel like we belong. We want to have that. And so it's just now in a work environment, but we're not taught how to navigate through those scenarios and environments.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, Jen, that it's taking us back to like how we felt in high school, right?
Mm.
And when you said it, it was like, it was so visceral. It was like, oh my gosh, I
You
feel,
felt it, right? Like, oh,
I
I
feel
remember
it.
that group. I remember that group was too cool. Okay, those
Yeah.
people, like, just not my people. And it was just,
Yeah.
you were trying to find your way through, where am I sitting and who am I going to hang out with? It is no different than work environment. And
Yeah.
even worse, I think, even worse, because there's this assumption that, oh, I'm an adult, I shouldn't have to be going through this weirdness. I'm here to work. I don't need friends. I mean, then you get this bitterness, right? You get these walls
Yeah.
where it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a paycheck. And I'm like, okay, now you're being silly because you're spending most of your day at work, so make the most of it.
Yeah, another really good point. Let me read what Bibiana says. Agreed. Assuming can be so wrong concerning people we don't know personally. Absolutely. It can be wrong, right? But like, I'm going to go take it back to what Jen said. If you don't know where to begin, or if there is no guidance, then it becomes a situation that becomes super layered, right? Like those questions in your mind, that feeling of taking you back. And I think that, when you said it about taking us back to high school, right? And feeling that way, I
Right.
think that we feel that way just naturally, but we're not identifying like it tapping back into something like that, right?
Mhm.
And so when we think about that, how did that feel for you? How did you find connections? Let me explain something. Let me give you an example. So when I was going to Berkeley and I had gotten in there, you step on that campus and like any university campus, and you start like, oh my gosh, it was my first time away from home, essentially, right? Living in a different city. There were over 30,000 people going to that school, which was the size of my city, essentially, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm lost. I'm feeling lost, right? And yet I was thinking to myself, okay, I need to find a group. I need to find a smaller group where I can, make friends, have commonalities, learn from one another. So I started going around and researching different groups. I started like, okay, should I go into ROTC? Should I go into a sorority? Should I go into like a language group? Should I go into what should I do? So I started actually going to these meetings. And I ended up joining temporarily ROTC. And I was like, no, that's not my group.
Really?
Oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm here because of a different reason. Like, this is not
Right.
me. Like, this is not, I don't want to go and I don't want to do A, B, and C. Now, it's funny because I married somebody who's in the service, right? Which totally great. I'm all in support of it. But for me, that was just not the group. So I ended up joining a sorority. And there was my connection, right? We did philanthropy, that taught leadership, like all the things that I was looking for value wise that aligned with who I was and what I wanted to, how I wanted to grow, right? And and that gave me that opportunity. But how do we do that with work? As we get older, we're a little bit more, maybe set in our ways. Maybe we have a little bit more of that ego that's getting in the way, right? And it's how do you break through that, all that heaviness, right?
Right.
and how do you connect with people? And I think that one of the great ways that we've been talking about is through our mentorship program, our cross generational mentorship program, because it actually is a system that's put in place to help with these kinds of things, to help bridge these gaps between communication, understanding people's strength, breaking down those stereotypes and assumptions. Those are the things that we need to break down. I wanted to mention something else too. You had mentioned about, you taking a class regarding how to be a good communicator. Was that the class? Is that a, and
Oh,
so I ended
networker.
up a few months, I would say it again.
Networker.
What was networker. So
Networker.
okay, so it's interesting because I've loved communication in different aspects, like building communities, being in communities, learning more about communities, but it's also about how to communicate, how to connect, right? So recently I was just really curious, like about this book. So it's the John Maxwell book,
Hmm.
and it's Everyone Communicates, Few Connect,
Right.
and that's a big distinction. We can all communicate, but how are we connecting? And I think
Right.
that when we talk about work and we talk about fostering understanding and success around generations, it's about not just communicating, not just effective listening. It has to do with that, but it's about how are we connecting? And when we connect, it looks different because we are washing away and breaking down and a better understanding maybe our the assumptions we're making, maybe our different ideas of different generations that aren't necessarily true. Maybe we're taking the individuality out of the situation where we're not even asking people about themselves.
Right.
So, how do we set people up for success in the workforce to be able to bridge these gaps, these communication gaps, these gaps where we're not even seeing people's strengths because we're not even getting to the point where we're asking questions because we've made too many assumptions.
Right.
How do we get to that point? And I love what Bibiana says because this is exactly, I love this. So I'm going to read some of her comments. She says, work can be much harder, especially if you're older or younger than the people you spend your day with. I'm always leery of the person who says, watch out for so and so, because it's my experience, it's been that person you need to watch out for. And connecting feels safe and respectful. When it does, it feels good. That's right. And here's the other thing too. When people say certain things like that, you're not giving other people an opportunity. So it's
You mean the
like,
person that it's about?
well, the person who says, watch out for A, B, or C,
Oh, you mean the
right?
person that's been warned?
Yes, right. Or the
Right.
person warning somebody, right? And that's a fair and I think generous in a way. Maybe they felt hurt or put upon or something by that person, but also you're not giving yourself the opportunity to kind of fill out those people that they're warning you about, right? Because
Right.
what if that one person is the exact person you needed most to kind of enlighten you about something? Or maybe that is the person that you needed to connect with to better communicate with, or communicate with to better have a better connection with. And maybe that opportunity wasn't given to that person. I don't know. But if we turn some things around and reframe things sometimes, it's important to give people that opportunity, create those safe spaces, right? And you never know if, as Bibiana says, it feels manipulative in a way.
Yeah. You don't know what that person did. You don't know what beef they had. For all you know, the person warning you was the perpetrator. You don't even know. So I think
Right.
it's important that if you do get that kind of warning,
Yeah.
that it's kind of like, okay, take it and take it or leave it. But I think it's important that you don't just take it on completely. It's just like, okay, you just kind of tuck that back, but tell yourself, okay, that might be that person's story. I don't know what's going on yet. Don't just assume all of a sudden and then start treating that other person, incorrectly, or you're already shunning them and brushing them off, or already giving them attitude. Because then that person's gonna be like, I don't know what's up with her. She just started working here. I don't even know her, but she's giving me attitude. I will say this. This is what I wish would happen. This is what I wish would happen in work environments. When there is that person, there is always that person. And if you think there isn't that person, it's probably you. But if there is that person, I wish there was something that could be done. Because I've been in that situation where everybody complained about a certain manager. Nothing was done. And then you have disgruntled employees under this manager. And it's like, I know that the higher ups knew that we had issues with this person, but nothing was done. And yet here we are feeling a certain way, and it's completely affecting the success. We still got the work done, but emotionally and the way we were feeling was like, I hate this place. I don't want to come in here because I got to deal with so and so because nothing's being done, and it was so frustrating. I mean, honestly, it was the one of the biggest reasons why I ended up leaving that job. And the money was incredible. I was making a ton of money at a very young age, and I was willing to take half. That's how frustrated I was, because I was just like, I'm so sick of this environment. And I wish there was, and not like tattletale, but I wish there was a better way to manage and pay attention to the like the bad kids. I don't know what to call it, but the people that are causing this angst amongst the culture. It seems like whenever there's that complaint, nothing's done about it. And yet you wonder why, I don't know, people keep quitting, and there's a high turnaround. Well, maybe because you're not getting rid of the people, and maybe not so that extreme, but maybe because you're not doing anything about the people that are like causing the culture to be, having that dissension and having that oh yeah, we got to deal with so and so. It just feels like nothing's ever done about that one person or two.
Yeah. That's a really interesting perspective, Jen, and I'm going to take it to an example. So recently, just in the United States, there's been a lot of different varying opinions about politics, right? And one of the things that I've been doing is I've been watching this one show where it brings on different representatives and different people talking about different perspectives. And they said, people are questioning us as to why we're not pushing back, why we're not doing A, B, or C, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to hear this out. I want to hear more. And they said, we have a certain protocol and process that we need to follow. And until something happens, we can't follow that process. And that process needs to be followed in a certain way legally for us to be able to do A, B, or C, right? And so it may be the same for our managers, our leaders, our directors, where they have to follow a certain process. So you may think that things aren't getting done, but they're actually paying attention. They're actually taking notes. They're actually talking to people, but they're following a process. The process may not be fast enough. And it also might be that there's not a process in place to actually eliminate these biases, to eliminate these boundaries, to eliminate these walls where you're creating safe spaces where you don't even get to that point. Right? Where you don't get to that point where you're feeling like you're in a toxic work environment where you leave for half the pay. Right? And so how do you do this? And it starts with creating those safe spaces. It starts with pairing people. One of the things that I was going to mention early on about feeling uncomfortable in that high school thing, right? Mm-hmm. I wish when we were in high school, and some schools were onto this early on, but mine wasn't, that you were given a sponsor or somebody to walk you around if you're a new student, or somebody, a matching program, a pairing program. But it was really up to you to go out and find that group, whether or not it was a student, the student committee meeting, committees, or language, or, student union. It could have been a lot of different things, right? So whatever it was kind of up to us to go find our niche, to go find that group. But when I got, as a military spouse, when we got over to Okinawa from the United States, we were actually given a sponsor family.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, it felt a little awkward, but it was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I don't know if she was going to be my best buddy or that family was going to be my best buddy, but it helped with the transition.
Right.
It helped create a smoother, safer transition where we understood how to drive on the roads. We knew where to go to take our driving test. And we knew where to go. We knew what kind of snakes were poisonous over there. We knew where to shop. We knew what restaurants we should go try. Like all these different things helped us get connected with our community. And when I talk about sponsorship, or we talk about protocol, or we talk about systems, the one good thing, or there are multiple good things about a mentorship program, especially in a workforce, is that it helps bridge gaps. It helps foster relationships. It helps break down the stereotypes. It helps have these conversations where we're creating safer spaces where we don't get to a place where it becomes toxic. And above all, there's retention involved here. So it helps the company in a big way because your workforce is then working towards a shared mission and your retention looks better as well, which then is a win-win for everybody. And more people are more harmonious. They're better understanding one another. They're making less assumptions. So there's so many great wins to setting up a program, especially like a cross-generational mentorship program where it works on these things. So it breaks down that toxicity in those environments and really helps support the mission. And being a military spouse, and I use this quite often because when our spouses are on a mission, whether or not it's at home or overseas or at war, they want the family to be content. They want the family to be happy. Why? Because it supports the mission. It makes that military member who is, gone away from their family able to focus better, able to do their work better, able to do all these things when the family is well, secure, has resources, has the ability to feel safe. So the same goes for helping the mission at your job.
Right.
Jen?
Yeah, it's like, how could you create like some kind of concierge program at your workplace? Have that person showing you the ropes. Maybe it's not even your manager, because there's going to be the manager who's, obviously going to be specific to your job and your daily task and, quarterly projects. But the other stuff, like, this is where you eat. Okay, this is what we do. Okay, like something, is, what kind of enrollment program do you have, or what kind of onboarding, not just the logistics and this is how you get into the SharePoint and then OneDrive and blah blah, not that kind of stuff. Like that's obvious, but what kind of like real legit structure program do you have in place to seamlessly onboard and enroll your people and to integrate them into your company culture? And I bet if you can't show some kind of outline, then you don't have one. If you're just kind of picking somebody like, oh, well, just kind of show them the ropes, and then they're just like, I don't know what to do. You can't, as managers, as execs and higher ups, you got to equip your people. Because trust me, they're looking at you saying like, I don't know why they're getting paid so much. They don't do anything around here. Trust me, we all have said it, because that's what it feels like sometimes. Where you're just like, I don't know why they're getting paid so much. They don't support us. They don't do anything. Now, that's not everybody. I'm just speaking from experience though. But I think it's so important that as leaders, we are constantly figuring out, good leaders. I have a book by Simon Sinek about this, where I think it's called Leaders Eat Last. And it's about, serving your people. Like, even there was an example in the book that was talking about the Marines. and they let everybody eat first before the leaders sit down. And it's like that mentality of serving and being of service to your people, because those are the ones who are going to support you. I mean, and that's an
Oh
even
yeah.
extreme one, because that's a life or death. But you can still take the same kind of concept, and how do you apply it so that you're supporting your people, because it will go far and go both ways, where your team will pull through. They're going to want to rally around you. They're going to, you just improve the culture. And if every department, if every team did that, I mean, imagine how much. It'd be interesting to see if there's a study on how much of an effect the company culture has on productivity.
Oh, there's all
And
kinds of studies.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
all
can't, I
kinds of
can only
studies.
imagine, because you're
Yeah,
moving away from that idea of like, I don't care. I'm just doing the bare minimum.
yeah,
I'm just ready to
yeah.
clock out, because at some point, some of us get there when we're in environments like that.
Oh, absolutely. Let me read Bibiana's last comment here. It says, if people feel part of something rather than an outsider, it's much easier to build something positive. Absolutely. I agree tremendously. But we, again, as but Bibiana mentioned, and is we need to start creating those safe spaces. I want to go back to something that you touched on too, Jen, when you touched on if you don't have something in place, why are you having the expectation that things are all going to work out for these employees in regards to onboarding, right? It's like, if you don't have a sponsorship program, if you don't have a mentorship program, if you don't have a concierge program, some kind of program to actually help support your employee evolution, right? And here's something else I want to mention too, because there are these general ideas of these different generations. And if we attach to that, that takes out some of that individuality. But when you see the memes and you see the posts on social media of the 1980s kids knew that we could drink out of water faucets and we rode bikes all day and we didn't come home until the sun went down, we could relate to that because generally speaking, we got that. And then, there's other memes about different generations, right? So our just think about this. When we're looking at cross generational mentorship, first of all, try and take the ego out of things, because we all have the opportunity to learn a lot of different things from one another. If you can just let go of the ego, because our older generations can bring wisdom, bring long-term strategic thinking to the party, right? They can also bring business that can really foster an environment where diverse perspectives really can like get connected and understanding. And then if you really look at like our younger folks, they can bring innovation, they can bring excitement, they can be dynamic with that excitement. And it's just, are you accepting of that?
Right.
Are you willing to open up and say, hey, get this, I want to be open to this and I want to work with you? Let me give you an example. So on weekends, some weekends, I would take some of my friends over to my aunt's. She was my great aunt in San Francisco, and we would take Bart from Berkeley over to see her, and she used to love it. She used to love it. She was older and she used to love it. And she'd say, bring your girlfriends here anytime. I love hearing them. They're so excited. I love hearing about everything that they're learning,
That's cute.
from culture to marketing to business to engineering to whatever it was. She loved it. It excited her. And I was like, that I love. I love that this woman who's got decades on us loves to sit down and hear about and get excited about what we're excited about. And then she would tell us her stories about, growing up, World War II, that different kind of stuff. And we're like, whoa, and taking the train and the blackouts and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. And that started my fascination with 1939 to 45, right? So it was like, okay, well, this is really interesting how we could pick up on that stuff. It's just about being open to it. Anyway, we've covered a lot of ground. And Bibiana says also, McConnell. I'm not sure what, but she's like, I'm not sure where that came from, but definitely new ideas come from the most unexpected places. Absolutely. And we're kind of closing down here. So with that said, Jen, what's your nugget for today?
I want to go back to the whole idea of like welcoming somebody, and maybe you might be in a situation where there isn't anybody new. So this is an opportunity for you to start with the people that you have now. Like what kind of, maybe it's not even a program, maybe it's a game, maybe it's like not feature, but like you pick one person that is in your team that you all get to know, and make it a game if you want, make it fun, like, but find a way to implement some kind of thing where your team gets to know each person individually, especially if you've never done that, and especially if somebody's new. But what are you doing to start building relationships with the people that you work with? Because again, it's that's those are the people you're spending so much time with. And I have found in the past when I've been able to get to know somebody, I have a different appreciation for them. The level is heightened, and then I have more empathy, especially if I find out they're going through something rough. It just changes again the perspective. So just also be careful with your lens, that you're not allowing it to be clouded without giving the other person a chance yet.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Last comment from Bibiana. I've had a few jobs where I shadowed someone and it was extremely helpful. Yeah, I think that's really helpful as well.
Oh, shadowed.
So,
I thought she said
yeah.
shouted at.
Oh, no.
Like, sometimes that can be helpful. I haven't tried that.
I haven't tried that either, but
I'm sure it's helpful for you.
but
I know it would be. It'd be like, I needed to get that off my chest.
right. It's something I thought about, but it was like, yeah. And then when I see people who do it, and then when you think about
one
and
thing
then,
to do, you couldn't do it. Yeah, that'd be great. Good tip, Viviana. I love it.
So my nugget today is give yourself the opportunity just to let that ego go. Try and wash away the ego for a day, for an hour, to be able to not just communicate, but to connect. And maybe check out some kind of book like John Maxwell's book about everyone communicates, few connect. Maybe check out a resource that actually will help you, because here's the thing, and one other thing I want to ask of you. It doesn't matter what generation you're from. If you're in the workforce, you're working for a company, become that person who takes ownership over your position, your leadership qualities, your strengths, and be a leader at any level of experience, because you are. And be able to talk, be able to connect with people, or at least try it and find a resource. If you don't know how, create those safe spaces for connection. That's my tip, my nugget for today, because I think that in itself will take people a long way. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Jen, for all your great insight. And any last words?
Nope. Dance it out.
Right. We're going to dance it out. Woo! Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next week.